and welcome to MeowMix, the Carolina Panthers podcast. My name is Steven.
My name is Jerry.
And we are here today to discuss the Matt Rhule interview. The first time we've heard from Matt since his final press conference. There's also a bit of Panthers news to talk about, but Matt Rhule's still the head coach, Jerry.
Yeah, he escaped the firing squad for the time being. I mean, coaches are still getting fired. Houston fired their head coach a little bit ago.
The Giants fired theirs yesterday.
Yeah, and we're recording this on Thursday, so it still can happen. It happens a week or two after the season, too. So that being said, it looks like he's in the clear, though.
Seems like it. That's the way he's been talking, and everything he's said about what he's heard from David Tepper, and he went into it on the interview, is that he says he's talked to David Tepper, a couple times a day, really, since the season's ended, and they've talked nothing about the potential of him being fired. They've only talked about the future and building continuing their plan to build, and it sounds like he's going to be here unless David Tepper just has a big change of heart.
Yeah.
Matt Rhule's going to be the coach this year.
Yeah. Speaking of not doing interviews, David Tepper has been in a foxhole hiding in a bunker or so because no
odd.
word from him.
And he's not shy.
No, he's not. It's really it's a really weird feeling as a Panther fan right now because the fans are up in arms that Matt Rhule is still here. Matt Rhule has done interviews. This isn't the only time he's spoken yet. He did a media interview the other day. But David Tepper,
his normal press conference.
David Tepper is so silent, and usually he's a very big talker. He's the type of guy that likes to be seen, I feel like. And right now, he's just hiding out.
Yeah, it's interesting. And I can only think of one reason why is because he knows how the fans feel.
Yeah.
And he understands that everything that he has done so far since taking over ownership of this franchise in 2018, I think, right? We had gone to the playoffs that year. And since then, it's been nothing but downhill ever since.
Downhill.
And he, made a very strong point when he took over that he wanted the mediocrity to end. And
it has.
If anything, it's just gotten worse. It's not even mediocre anymore.
No, it's just bad.
Yeah.
Since he took over. So,
maybe we won't hear from him until we have a winning season. Then he'll come in and be like, I told you so, blah, blah, blah. Okay, well. It took a while, but
or until he fires Matt Rhule next season or something like that, they don't come out and I gave him a chance, or he's gonna try to always spin it that he's the golden boy, the winner, But
Matt Rhule didn't get fired, but a few other coaches did. Pat Meyer, offensive line coach, special teams coach Chase Blackburn, yay, and defensive line coach Frank Okam.
Yeah,
I don't know how to say that last name, but those three got fired. And honestly, I'm okay with all of them.
All O-line and special teams coach, I thought had to go. I thought both. If Matt Rhule stayed, those two definitely had to go. The O-line has been horrible the past 2 years. And Chase Blackburn, since he took over the special teams coordinator, we've had a miserable special teams. I mean, he got lucky by getting Zane Gonzalez this year. I mean, he lucked into that after trading for kickers, traveling through kickers, not bringing anybody to compete with Joey Sly. Another issue with, Matt Rhule is he didn't bring someone in to compete. But, he lucked into Zane Gonzalez, who, all intensive purposes, is a kicker of the future here.
I think so, yeah. Yeah. And then, defensive line coach, when the news first broke, you and I were talking and we were a little confused at first, but then kind of started looking into it and thinking about it. And the run defense was just so bad. And a lot of that starts on the defensive line and sacks. Really, I mean, we had two guys that were great at sacks, but that's kind of it.
And they kind of tapered off at the tapered off
Panthers
once
right in the middle of the league in sacks. So yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, they tapered off at the end of the
Hmm.
season or in the middle of the season. Once a couple teams maybe figured out their key plays or key moves, it was
Yeah.
over. I mean, we
Right.
weren't getting the sacks that we were at the beginning of the season, and it's the team didn't evolve. It didn't,
Yeah.
counteract what the teams were doing to them. So,
Yeah. So Matt Rule spoke today, and shout out to the guys at WFNZ and what Mac Attack and
mm-hmm.
the other guy. I don't know what his name is, but
uh,
um,
it's the Mac Attack show. So,
Mac Attack Show.
and if you're
Um,
on YouTube, I'll do a link in the description. So,
yeah, yeah, it's worth listening to. It was about 25 minutes or so, and they asked him
hard
some of the
questions.
questions. Yeah, some of the questions that I hope that they would, and they kind of started out just well, not started out, but one of the questions that I liked that they asked him was basically they asked him about the fan backlash, and they asked
Mm,
him, if he's kind of felt it, and or they assumed that he had felt it, which of course he had, and he basically said that he understands, that he wants a winner, that nobody's more upset about the way the season went than he is, which I can believe that. Um, and then he mentioned, how his they asked him specifically about the Hornets game, and he said, "Yeah, I told my son that I don't think we're going to be going any Hornets games this season," which, I guess I wouldn't want to go if I was him either and just be booed the whole time. I can understand that. So, um, yeah, they did ask him about that, and he certainly understands. He hears us loud and clear.
yeah. But you and I were talking off the air. Yeah, I
Mhm.
understand that. You don't want to put your family in that. But he has the resources to go to that gate to take his son to a suite that's just him. I mean, it's the age of the mask, anyways. Put on a hat, put on some glasses, walk in there with a mask, and be escorted to your suite because he has the money. Tepper overpaid him. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, you're gonna if people recognize you out in public, but again, if you're on the suite, they do it for celebrities all the time. I could imagine they would be willing to do it for him if he got a suite or something. But
I guess. I mean, I wouldn't want to go if I was him.
oh yeah, but
I
I
mean,
wouldn't want to be
I
seen
wouldn't
in
want to put
public right
myself
now.
in that position. Certainly wouldn't want to. But yeah, he, my opinion is we bashed Matt Rule so much on this show, and honestly, out there in Twitter and Reddit, everybody knows how everybody feels. So I'm not going to sit here and nitpick, that Matt Rule says he doesn't want to go to Hornets games. Obviously, he could go if he really wanted to, but just kind of reporting what he said there. What else on an interview that you heard did you really want to talk about?
Uh, I love this question by the Mac Attack. They asked
Mm-hmm.
him about the quarterback situation, how
Mm-hmm.
last year it was Teddy Bridgewater, this year it was Sam Darnold, but they passed on Justin Fields. It
Mm-hmm.
seems like they're just throwing stuff at the wall, hoping something sticks.
Yeah.
And honestly, I didn't like his answer. It was, well, we were hoping for Teddy Bridgewater to be a solid quarterback, and then, we could maybe draft somebody if that Patrick Mahomes or something. Well, you had that chance. Yeah, we wanted Teddy
Right.
Bridgewater here, but he was not horrible in the sense that Sam Darnold has been. You could have
Right.
kept him. He was under contract and then drafted Justin Fields. But then
Yeah.
he went into the fact that, oh, we thought Sam Darnold would have been one of the best quarterbacks in this draft.
Mm-hmm.
It sounded like pure BS from him, in my opinion. It sounded like he was just off the scales, trying to cover his own butt instead of.
So here's the deal. Here's the deal.
Mm-hmm.
You and 90% of Panthers fans that have a voice, on social media, Reddit, whatever, you guys are going into listening to this interview with your minds made up. Anything he says is just gonna be bullshit.
It's because that's
I'm
what
gonna
it
hear
sounds
it, and
like.
he's just a bullshit salesman. I tried to go into it with a bit of an open mind and kind of try to listen to what he was saying and not automatically think, it's just bullshit. I can understand the thought process from you and the rest of Panthers Nation. Honestly, I feel like I'm kind of an outlier here, where I'm not so, um, you know, outraged that Matt Rule is still the head coach. I mean, obviously, if I had a choice, I'd rather have Brian Flores or Jim Harbaugh, one of these top coaching candidates that are out there. Um, but I'm not like doom and gloom like a lot of folks are. Um, so when I heard that, I, with an open mind, thought, well, I guarantee that he wasn't the only coach in the league that thought that. That thought. I mean, we heard analysts, we heard other coaches talk about how Sam Darnold, put him in the right situation. He's still got a ton of talent. He's got a ton of arm talent. Blah blah blah. Obviously, that was wrong. Sam Darnold is not a good quarterback. Matt Rhule and everyone else who thought that, they were wrong, right? But the prevailing thought was, outside of Trevor Lawrence, there were a ton of question marks about all of these guys in the draft. You and I talked about it in our draft profiles. Justin Fields had questions. Zach Wilson had questions. Yep. Trey Lance had a ton of questions. Mac Jones had a ton of questions. So it's not completely out of the realm of possibility that was their thought process, and he's telling the truth.
Oh, I'm not saying it's not, but he also threw Teddy Bridgewater under the bus halfway through the season, and he kept doing it. And at that point, you have to move on from Teddy Bridgewater. He kind of put his chips in on him, so then we have to get rid of him. We traded Teddy Bridgewater for a 6th-round pick, and then you go. At that point, you're sitting with no quarterback. You're sitting with PJ. I can't even think of his last Walker back there as your only quarterback. So you're going to have to make a move. I mean, instead of if he didn't throw him under the bus, if he just did coach speak and think internally of, hey, guys, I don't think Teddy's going to do it for us, and then start doing this other feeling around, it felt like it was he had to. It felt like he already threw him under the bus, that if he kept him as a quarterback next or this year, it would have been just him keeping him. I felt like he forced his own hand.
Yeah, he made it very clear that Teddy Bridgewater was not getting it done, and that they were not happy with Teddy Bridgewater's performance. Now, Teddy Bridgewater is already being paid, so had they brought him back and had they went ahead and drafted a quarterback of the future, I think. I mean, I certainly wouldn't have been like, what? Well, you said Teddy Bridgewater was bad. What are you doing bringing him back? I mean, I would have been like, okay, they brought him back for this last year. Obviously, you could void his contract after this year with minimal dead cap or no dead cap, really. And you brought in the quarterback of the future. So I don't necessarily think that they had to cut him because of what Matt Rhule said. Obviously, it was a huge mistake to get rid of Teddy Bridgewater. That's clear. It was a huge mistake going after Sam Darnold. That's clear. It's so frustrating because they sort of have been just throwing things at the wall to see if it sticks, and these quarterbacks that they're going after, I guess you could squint your eyes and think about Sam Darnold as a rookie and say, well, he just, if he really gets the right coaching staff and he gets the right situation, then maybe it unlocks his potential. You could squint your eyes and see that. And that's obviously what they did. But it never felt like he was the guy, like Sam Darnold was the franchise moving forward. It never felt like that to us, for sure.
No. Well, I've always had my dislike of Sam Darnold. So,
of course. Yeah.
But
I feel like with everything here, I'm kind of trying to be the glass half full guy, trying to think of that. And maybe that's a good dynamic between the two of us. But the first 3 games of the season, I think we were both kind of like, okay,
I thought I was wrong. Yeah. And another thing he brought up in the interview is the offensive line, that they're going to need to spend more money. He was talking about, now we have some free agent. We had more cap space last year than we did this year. And because he was talking and he's talking about, we have to really, focus in on the offensive line. This is what you said last year, Matt Rhule. You said that was going to be a priority. And you signed 2 offensive linemen for first day of free agency. You drafted 3 offensive linemen, if you consider a snapper. I mean, you did that. You did that. So where is your judgment? And then he talks about Rashawn Slater was considered a guard because of his short arms. I mean,
Yeah.
it's again, does he not know the ability of being able to pick out these players? I mean, because he's talking about spending money and doing it again. Well, so far your judgment on offensive line has been awful, awful. And you've had money. You had money last offseason. You had draft capital last offseason.
Yeah. So devil's advocate, he certainly was not the only one saying that about Rashawn Slater.
No,
There
I
were a
thought that.
lot of things that we read. There were a lot of draft profiles, a lot of stuff. People were concerned about the size of Rashawn Slater. Um, didn't know if he would translate into a left tackle. There were other people that thought he was, and obviously he was a top 15 pick in the draft. Like, you obviously are really good if you're a top 15 pick in the draft, regardless of the question marks. But yeah, obviously he was wrong about that. Now, he did draft Brady Christensen and Deontay Brown, both of whom played well at times. He did mention in the interview that he thought Brady Christensen was, or that he thought he made a mistake with Brady Christensen in terms of playing him at multiple positions, pulling him maybe too early from that left tackle when he struggled a little bit. I think he basically said that if he could go back, he would do that differently, and he would continue, just let Brady kind of learn and continue to play. At the time, I think, when he pulled Brady from left tackle, I think there was, we were still in the playoff hunt. So he
Yeah.
was thinking that, get the guys in there that have played the position and are, more natural at left tackle, or, whatever, not more natural, but are more experienced, I guess, at left tackle, Cam Irving. But yeah, he completely admitted to that mistake. He did say that he was excited about Brady and he thought Brady could be a left tackle in the league, and had shown that he could play left tackle in the league, which I like that I heard that from him. He talked about Deontay Brown and thought that he could be, is Deontay Brown, right? I'm not saying that
Yeah.
wrong.
Yeah,
Okay.
you're saying, I believe you're
Okay.
saying it right. If not, I mean,
Yeah.
we'll be
Well,
criticized
you're
for
giving
it.
me you're giving me looks, so I just want to
Oh,
make sure that I'm
the
not
only reason
saying.
why I say that is he's talking that, but he only played 30 snaps this season. 30
Well, and
snaps.
he addressed that. He addressed him. He addressed Harris Marshall. He addressed Tommy Trimble a little bit in terms of their amount of playing time and their amount of reps and things like that. And basically, his philosophy was not to play them a ton. Essentially, was to get their feet wet, get them to learn under some of the other guys, get them, some reps, but not too many. And then next year is the year that they're going to come in and really contribute. So maybe he has a flaw in the way that he deals with rookies. I mean, it certainly wouldn't be the first Panthers coach that we've seen that from.
Yeah.
But this is apparently what we're going to maybe should expect from second round on rookies, is that they're not going to play a ton. That could be.
It
And
could
they
be.
asked him about, yeah, I mean, they asked him about passing on Slater and passing on Fields and Jones. And he talked about JC Horn, and he talked about how
Yeah.
excited he was about JC Horn and how, well JC Horn played. Even in the game he got hurt, he was playing amazing. And JC Horn was playing really well. And I think if JC Horn kept playing, he probably had a good shot at defensive rookie of the year. I mean, he was playing that well. So again, JC Horn could turn out to be an all-pro corner. But if Rashawn Slater turns out to be an all-pro left tackle, and if Justin Fields turns out to be an all-pro quarterback, then you probably made the wrong decision.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially with the moves you were able to make during the season, and with another cornerback you drafted late you proved that you could draft somebody late who can contribute nicely. Yeah. I mean, he was talking about getting the feet wet of the offensive guys. He's throwing out those defensive players, rookies, a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it wasn't just him. It's over and over again. It seems like he has faith that a defensive rookie could just walk in there and do it. It feels like something different with the offense, that he's very gun shy about it.
Well, so I mean, he played Horn a lot, number one pick, but
Mhm.
really the other defensive rookies that he played were kind of because everybody kept getting hurt.
Keith Taylor
I
was
don't,
out there a lot
I don't
during
know
like
what
week
Keith
4
Taylor's
and
snap
stuff.
counts were though, like in terms of, I don't think he played a ton. Uh, you
I
know,
believe he played a good
he
bit.
played well when he was out there, but I think a lot of it was like he had to be out there because there was nobody else. But anyway, one of the things that I wish they would have asked him, and correct me if I dozed off when they talked about this, but I was hoping that they would have asked him about second half adjustments. Did
Oh
they
yeah, they
ask
didn't
him?
talk. No.
Yeah, that's really probably would be my number one question is what happens after the first quarter where you're so good, you're so prepared, you're so, you're scoring points, you're stopping the other team from scoring points, you're one of the top two or three first quarter teams in the league, and then it all falls apart. Why? What are you going to do next year to
To
change that?
change. Yeah.
Yeah, I really wish that they would have addressed that. That's probably my only criticism. um, I would have rather asked about that than the fan backlash. That obviously here's the fan backlash. I don't think that was any interesting or new information, but I really want to know about that. What else from the interview did you find interesting, or did you
Uh
want to bring up here?
I know we are going to talk about the offensive coordinator search
Mm-hmm.
in a little bit, but one thing that I really found interesting with what he said, they asked him what he was searching for in an offensive coordinator. He said someone who had experience as an offensive coordinator, calling plays before,
Mm-hmm.
someone who's willing or able to adapt to the players that they had. That a lot of interviews go through and it's, here's my offensive plays, here's my defensive plays. So it's
Mm-hmm.
not seeming like they're going to beat that type of system in no matter what instead of seeing what they have and are able to adjust.
Yeah.
So I thought that
I,
was very good. I like that type
mm-hmm.
of, you know, thought
Thought process.
process.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. It's the thought process he should have had day one
Yeah.
when he came in. And I don't know, I don't think that he and Joe Brady were a package deal, like that the only way he was going to get this job was if he brought in Joe Brady. I don't think that. I think he could have brought in an NFL OC or a former head coach or something like that as OC. I think he'd have gotten the job either way. Um,
Yeah.
I know there are a lot of people, fans that I've seen that have now completely turned the corner, and now they think that Joe Brady was not the problem. Joe Brady's a rock star. Joe Brady's going to be
No,
really
that
successful, and,
play
and
calling
maybe he
was
will at
bad.
some point. Joe Brady was a problem. Don't get it twisted. Joe Brady was the one calling the plays. Joe Brady was the one creating the offensive game plans. You know, that was not Matt Rhule, certainly not Matt Rhule alone doing all that stuff. So I do think that bringing in somebody that can adapt to the players on the team, I wonder if Joe Brady just couldn't. If Joe Brady, had his plays he likes to run and never really was able to come up with anything else.
Yeah. And when Jeff Dixon took over, I feel like the same thing kind of happened. It was
Mm-hmm.
not
Yeah, it was the
it,
same offense.
it and he was talked about running the ball, but even when the game was close, they did not run the ball. So I
Mm-hmm.
don't understand that. I mean, again, that's what he's saying. That's what he's saying. I'm hoping that's true. That the next coordinator can adjust to the players and everything else. And he said he kind of learned a lot when he was doing the GM search last year, which is another thing I wanted to talk about. How I always said that it felt like Matt Rhule was the king of Panthers Nation right now. He got to decide everything. And with him saying that he basically did the GM search, it feels like he did. He does.
Well, I don't know if he meant that he alone was
Well, I'm
the one
sure he
doing the
wasn't
GM
alone.
search. I'm sure he
Yes,
was part of the process. And honestly, like, David Tepper paid him a lot of money. David Tepper is expecting Matt Rhule to be the face of the franchise and be the guy that's, running the ship. Um, usually it's the GM is brought in and then a head coach is brought in. It was very odd David Tepper coming in, retaining Marty Herney, you know, Marty Herney helping with the head coach search.
Mm-hmm.
Marty Herney kind of being a lame duck GM. Like we all knew Marty Herney wasn't going to stick around for more than a year or two. Then you get rid of Marty Herney and then you're bringing in another GM. It's kind of all done backwards almost, right?
Yeah, I feel like David Tepper should have fired Marty Herney when he fired Ron Rivera. Should have got a GM, and then they do the search from there.
And honestly, I mean, we talked about that.
Yeah,
I don't know if we had the podcast back then, but we talked about
we
that.
did.
Okay, yeah, we talked about that at the time, that we thought, I mean, everybody, all the fans, everybody wanted Marty Herney gone for good reason. Marty Herney was a one-trick pony, excellent at drafting first-round picks. That's pretty much it.
We said he should have gotten some, they should have moved him into some, senior type of role where he just, he's no longer the GM, but he helps out the GM. He basically makes the first pick because he nails it every time.
Right. So that was done really oddly and honestly probably pretty poorly constructed that way. But I mean, I like Fitter. I think they probably made a pretty good pick with him. We'll see as time moves on. Everybody is down on everybody in the organization right now. The fans are down on Tepper and Fitterer and Rhule, and Phil Snow seems to be the only one escaping criticism right now. So and Phil Snow will come up a little later in our podcast. But so I don't know. I mean, overall, I thought that the interview was well done. I do wish they would have asked the question about the second halves, but I thought Matt Rhule, kudos to him for even doing the interview. You didn't have to.
Yeah.
He answered all the questions. I thought he put some thought into the questions or into his answers. I didn't feel like he was BSing or lying about anything. There's coach speak. Every coach has coach speak. But yeah, I don't know that I come out of the interview thinking radically different than I thought before the interview.
I'll agree with that I don't feel much different. But again, I kind of feel like he's a snake oil salesman. That he talks a great game when you're face to face, when he has time to think on, if he already has stuff planned out and stuff like that. He knew the type of questions that were going to come. He had time to prep. The problem is the same like the after game interviews is he can't think on his toes a lot. Same with in-game situations. After the games, he just fumbles around. Same with the questions. I hope he does exactly what he says. That, he does go get out offensive line this year like he said he was going to do last year. I hope he does. I hope he does get an adaptive offensive coordinator because I think that's what's needed. I think another coach who has either head coaching experience or has been in the NFL a long time can really help this coaching staff out. I mean, when he's been, I was going to say, when he was kept in as a head coach, my thought is he needs to get a clock coach, somebody to help him with time management during the game. He needs another head coach that he can rely on. I know he used to talk to Jimmy Johnson a lot. He needs somebody to really kind of help him feel out how the NFL is run today, because I don't think he gets it. Yeah, a good mentor that's recent. Jimmy Johnson's supposedly his mentor, but I don't know if he's really mentoring him while he's out on his boat or something.
Well, and that's the thing is, I almost hate hearing him talk about, well, we want to run the ball 30, 40 times a game. Well, yeah, if you run the ball 30, 40 times a game, you're probably going to win, but that's not really the NFL anymore.
No.
The NFL now is quarterback driven. It's not running back driven anymore. So it's nice to say that. And yeah, obviously if you run the ball 35 times, statistics say you're going to win because, well, you have the ability to run the ball 35 times. The score dictates that you can do that. But that's not really how it works in today's NFL, right? No. It's just like him saying that they have the number 2 defense. Well, yeah, you have the number 2 defense. The way that defense is sort of measured in terms of yards per game, But if you look at all the other defensive statistics, you're nowhere near number two.
You're like 20th in points per
Right.
game. That's the only one that really matters, in my opinion.
I mean, that's the one that determines whether you win or lose. Right?
Exactly.
Now, the points per game is not all on the defense because we know the offensive deficiencies that led to that, but that it is what it is. You're 5-12. That's really the only statistic you should worry about. You're 5-12.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
I mean, 10-23 in your 2 years here. That's what it's boiling down to.
Exactly. All right, so let's look at, we were talking a little bit about the offensive coordinator search. We have a few names. Now, the first names that kind of came out were Bill O'Brien, former head coach in the league, former offensive coordinator in the league for the Patriots and current Alabama offensive coordinator, and Jay Gruden, former head coach of the Washington football team and offensive coordinator with
Bengals.
Bengals.
Cincinnati Bengals when Carson Palmer lit it up and
right,
stuff.
Right. So, either of those would fit the criteria, right?
Oh,
Former
I would.
Head coaches, offensive coordinators have called plays in the league before. I think they'd be really good options.
I would love for Bill O'Brien or Jay Gruden to be the offensive coordinator. It matches exactly what I feel like this coaching staff needs is a veteran NFL coach who knows the ropes,
but not so old that they're
out of sync.
They don't know how the league works these days.
Correct.
Right.
It wasn't 20 years ago. Jay Gruden's been out for a couple of years now, but it still hasn't been that long.
Right.
So, and Bill O'Brien's down in Alabama. As much as I hate Nick Saban, I mean, there's a good place to land and good coaching to be done there.
Yeah, I thought Bill O'Brien was a decent head coach, an awful GM, but a decent head coach. So,
yeah,
either one of those works for me. Probably the other one that I'm most excited about is Houston quarterbacks coach Pep Hamilton, who they're rumored to have requested an interview for. I guess they have requested an interview. It's not a rumor. Yeah. They have requested an interview for him. He was the OC for Indianapolis during the first few Andrew Luck years. Pep Hamilton has coached Andrew Luck. He's coached Justin Herbert. He's coached Davis Mills this year, who
he played well for a late round pick.
Played pretty well, yeah. And then there was another quarterback that he coached well. I don't.
He was also a head coach in the XFL. I mean, I hate saying that as like it's a big deal, but it is. He has a little head coaching experience. Yeah. He's a Charlotte native. Yeah. It looks like he just gets stuck under bad head coaches. That
I told you earlier. I was like, it's kind of weird that he only holds a job every now and then, or he jumps from job to job, and then you were like, well, all those coaches get fired. Like, yeah, that's true.
Jim Caldwell, the Chargers coach last year. It's just, I mean, unfortunately, he's doing a good job from what it seems like on the quarterback side. It's just the rest of the team is not doing so well, and he gets canned with it. I did hear a rumor that with Houston firing their head coach, there was talks before he was canned that some within the organization like Pep Hamilton to go ahead and succeed him because they were already thinking that Cooley, I can't think of the head coach's name, wasn't a good coach, but they really liked Pep Hamilton and wanted to keep him around. So you may have some interviews with him or not let him go.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I had heard that they wanted that there was a lot of, the newspaper in Houston and everyone was, basically begging them to make him the offensive coordinator, and that this was before their head coach was fired, so they could retain him and not lose him. So he is highly sought after and widely thought of as a head coaching candidate in the near future. So maybe the near future is even nearer than a lot of people thought. A couple other names we've heard here is former Vikings offensive coordinator Clint Kubiak. Coobs.
Yeah, a relationship to Gary Kubiak. I mean, Vikings have a lot of similar weapons as Carolina does. Dalvin Cook, Christian McCaffrey, Adam Thielen and Justin Jefferson. better than Robbie Anderson and DJ Moore. I mean, as a
Sure,
tandem.
of course.
I don't want to have anybody
Yeah, I
yell
mean
at
those
me for
guys
that.
are top 10 receivers in the league, both of them.
Yeah.
So
But I think, you have some pieces that are very similar that you could work with. The problem is, Vikings fans were very upset that their offense actually took a step back when he
mhm.
took over.
Yeah,
So I
still
don't
a
know if the
pretty high-powered offense. So I mean, it
12th
would
of the league, I
probably,
believe,
yeah, would
last
probably
year.
be an upgrade for us.
Well,
But yeah, I don't. That one doesn't get me excited like the other three that we've talked about.
no.
Um, Mike Groh, Indianapolis Colts receiving coach, is the other name I guess we've heard, and that one also doesn't really get me excited.
No, I mean, me either. He's been with Philadelphia before.
Hmm.
I, he was an offensive coordinator with Philadelphia for a couple years, so he has some experience there. He was also Virginia offensive coordinator back in 2006. Again,
Hmm.
from the Doug Peterson, Frank Reich type of tree. I don't know if I really am excited, but we may not get this type of star that is rumored. I know the reports are out. I know Albert Breer reported it, and Jay Glazer reported that it needs to be a rock star offensive coordinator. I mean, if you're a rock star offensive coordinator, are you coming to Carolina with a lame duck coach that's
I mean, it
on a
depends.
fiery seat?
Yeah, it depends. Like if you're Jay Gruden, you don't have a job right now. If you're Bill O'Brien, are you desperate to get back into the NFL? If you are,
I personally, if I
then
I was Bill O'Brien, I would stay
mhm,
put at Alabama, or I would, if he gets offered one of these head coaching jobs he's interviewing for now at
mhm.
in the NFL.
True, and that's another thing to say about Bill O'Brien. He's interviewing with the Jags and maybe a couple other teams as well. So we know one team he won't be interviewing for is Houston, but I I haven't heard Jay Gruden's name anywhere for interviewing. That
No,
one
he.
seems to make a lot of sense to me. I mean, Jay Gruden, Pep Hamilton, Bill O'Brien, obviously those would be at the top of my pyramid of guys that I would want. But I mean, we're just gonna have to see. I think it's gonna be kind of a long process. I think it might be a couple of weeks, 2, 3 weeks before we hear anything concrete about who they're targeting or who they're hiring essentially. But it's certainly something to keep our eye on, and Jerry and I will definitely be here when it happens.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. I just have a feeling the offensive coordinator name is going to be very underwhelming, which it may be fine to be underwhelming head coach or offensive coordinator, and then he plays
Mhm.
does really well. I mean, that's how it happens sometimes.
I have a feeling that it's going to be somebody we're going to be excited about. I mean, we were excited about Joe Brady.
Yeah,
You know that was an like you said, Matt Rhule talks a good game. Matt Rhule gets these guys in here and talks to them. David Tepper comes in and reinforces his faith in Matt Rhule and the process. You know, I would imagine the guy that they want's not leaving without a job. I think Tepper's got the money to pay, and Matt Rhule, even if he's a snake oil salesman, he's gonna sell. And
yeah.
I would imagine that they're gonna get who they want, unless that candidate gets a head coaching job.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Like I said, I think Pep Hamilton and Bill O'Brien both have that head coaching ability to get staff, and mostly for Pep Hamilton in Houston.
Mm-hmm.
Or
Yeah.
if he doesn't get the Houston job, he may be able to go to one of these other new head coaches that gets hired
Mm-hmm.
because he's a hot name
A little
right
more
now.
job security. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see what happens there. But yeah, we'll be back to talk about any more concrete rumors come up or anything like that. You guys in the comments, you hear anything, have heard anything, let us know, and we'll talk about those guys as well. But as of right now, that's kind of where things stand.
Yep. We want to thank everyone for listening. If you like the show, please let your friends know. Please follow us on Twitter at MeowMix Podcast. If you have any questions or comments, you can email us at mailbag at MeowMixPodcast.com. And if you leave a 5-star review with a comment on Apple Podcasts, we'll read it on the show. Please like and subscribe on YouTube.
We'll be back very soon. We're going to do a season recap. We're going to give out some rewards, talk about some stats, things we liked, things we didn't like. So stick around for that. And until then, everybody stay safe out there and keep pounding.
Stand and cheer for the Panthers. Stand and cheer for the team. The pride of both Carolinas and city of the Queen. Carolina! Stand and cheer for the Panthers in our grand old day. Nothing could be finer than to be in Carolina for a Panther football game. From the mountains to the ocean, Carolina, Carolina, best of them all. From the end zone to the end zone, Carolina, Carolina, carry